And greetings. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in here today, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace, Aaron McIntyre, Todd Erzin. They're here with me as well. If you'd like to join us today, 888-900-3393 is the number. That's 888-900-3393. Steve at stevedeace.com. That's how you can email us. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. And if you're looking for clips of this show that you can sample and share, go to youtube.com/Steve Deace. youtube.com/Steve Deace. And don't forget, there has never been a better time to subscribe to Blaze TV. We've made it cheaper than ever. $30 off an annual subscription, which comes out to like $5 and change a month. I have to believe us or somebody here on this network is worth $5 and change a month. But it's also probably more important than ever before as less and less media becomes less and less trustworthy. We need platforms like The Blaze to give us some real analysis and information, some real interest in what the actual truth is, right? So go to blazetv.com/Deace. That's blazetv.com/Deace. Use the promo code Steve in order to get that discounted subscription right now. blazetv.com/Deace, promo code Steve. Our good friend, well, my good friend, Congressman Chip Roy from Texas will be joining us here at the bottom of the hour. Next hour, we've got an entire hour of buy, sell, or hold. So we've got to have some tasty morsels lined up for that hour. Looking forward to that. But before we get to both of those, here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were in lockdown.
What happened while we were locked down, brought to you by opening up and shutting who down.
Today, I'm instructing my administration to halt funding of the World Health Organization while a review is conducted to assess the World Health Organization's role in severely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the coronavirus.
President Trump also unveiled some, as of now, vague plans to reopen the country.
The governors are going to be running their individual states. Some of them will say, no, I can't open now. And some of them may last longer than we even would think. Others will say, I can. You can go. I don't want to mention states, but there are numerous states that are in great shape right now. They're viewing the rest of the country like, we don't even believe this is happening. We have a lot of those states. They're set to open practically now. I mean, they would be open now. We're going to let them open sooner than the date. We're going to pick a date. We're going to get a date that's good, but it's going to be very, very soon, sooner than the end of the month. But there are many states out there that are looking at this and they're reviewing it and they're saying, we shouldn't be even included in this. You know, there are some that want to open up almost now.
And President Trump announced the members of the Council to Reopen America, a list which includes the commissioners of every major sporting league.
But we have to get our sports back. I'm tired of watching baseball games that are 14 years old. But I haven't actually had too much time to watch. I would say maybe I watch one batter and then I get back to work.
Yesterday, the Trump administration intervened in federal court on behalf of the Greenville, Mississippi church, whose parishioners were fined $500 last week for attending a drive-in service. The Department of Justice said in a statement that it, quote, strongly suggests that the city's actions target religious conduct, end quote. In Raleigh, North Carolina, protesters gathered outside the General Assembly building calling for businesses to reopen amidst the pandemic. At least one person was arrested for failing to social distance in a satisfactory manner. The Raleigh Police Department tweets, quote, protesting is a non-essential activity. Learning Chinese today, today's phrase is tar and feather.
郊游和羽毛
New York City's death toll surged past 10,000 yesterday after the city added and backdated 3,700 additional deaths from people who died who were never tested for the virus, but presumed to have died from the disease. After dismissing claims by Senator Tom Cotton months ago that the Wuhan coronavirus pandemic may have been, at best, the result of a mishap at a viral research facility in Wuhan, China, The Washington Post yesterday published an exclusive story detailing the U.S. government's concerns over standards at the laboratory dating back to 2018. Further evidence the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation models are supremely broken. The country of Denmark never implemented a stay-at-home order, never closed non-essential services, and never curbed travel like the models told them to. It also reached its peak of new cases at least a week ago and is sending young children back to school today. And the model still says they're to reach their peak hospital use by the beginning of May. Major League Baseball announced yesterday it'll be testing up to 10,000 people nationwide for coronavirus antibodies over the next couple of days. A preliminary study out of a homeless shelter in Boston showed that 36% of those tested had the virus and nearly all were asymptomatic. Stanford epidemiologist Jay Bhattacharya went on Tucker Carlson last night and discussed what he thinks the ending death rate might be.
I think based on the evidence I've seen so far, it's likely orders of magnitude lower than the initial estimates. The World Health Organization put an estimate out that was, I think, initially 3.4%. It's very unlikely that it's anywhere near that. It's much likely, much closer to the death rate that you see from the flu per case. The problem, of course, is that we don't have a vaccine. So in that sense, it's more deadly and more widespread than the flu.
Right.
And it overwhelms hospital systems in ways the flu doesn't. But per case, I don't think it's as deadly as people have thought.
And finally, Legit News out of Nigeria tweets a picture of a girl wearing a mask full of holes saying, quote, 20-year-old first-class anatomy graduate of Delta State University, Ishkali, Grace Kanichi, is making face masks with beads after observing that some people find it hard to breathe with the popular face masks. Isn't this innovative? And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Rough Greens. Did you know that your dog's dry dog food has essentially, the reason it's dry, it's been stripped of everything that's live in it. So that means a lot of the probiotics and prebiotics, the enzymes, vitamins, healthy microbacteria that your dog needs is now not there. And the reason why is so that it can have a long shelf life and be available for mass consumption. I mean, that's the same reason they've stripped a lot of the live organisms out of the food that we eat as well. That's where Rough Greens VitaSmart comes in. They want to put all that live stuff that your dog needs to be healthy and to thrive. They want to put it back in your pet's food. Now, this doesn't replace your dog's food. It makes your dog's food better. I saw that again this morning at my house after I fed Cap this morning, and I put some Rough Greens VitaSmart in his food, and that stuff was gone in about 30 seconds. All right. So it must also taste great in addition to being great for your dog too. If you want to take a 14-day Jumpstart Challenge to help your dog feel better and healthier, you can try it right now for just $14.95. Just $14.95 for the Rough Greens VitaSmart 14-day Jumpstart Challenge. And you can take advantage of this by going to the website, roughgreens.com. That's RUFF, roughgreens.com, RUFF, roughgreens.com /Blaze, roughgreens.com/Blaze. I want to thank one of our listeners, John Famlor, is who flagged what was going on in Denmark as it correlated to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's University of Washington simulation that apparently people are still looking at because they think the earth is flat. I don't know why. Okay. I guess Team Apocalypse is just, at this point, they're doing retread porn. But John Famlor went and looked at what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has forecasted for Denmark and had forecasted for Denmark this entire time, and then correlated it to Denmark's actual data. And what you find is one of these things is not like the other. So I want to give him credit for that. And one of the things that John put in his note, I want to add that to this conversation as well, gentlemen. Because one of the very first questions I asked when we went down this road of skepticism, not knowing where it would lead, okay? But one of the first questions that I said was going to drive why I'm doing this is my experience has taught me that expertise doesn't protect you from a worldview bias. And I framed it with the question, where does the expertise end and the worldview bias begin, right? And I think I even used an analogy of if you had a Darwinian geologist take you on a tour of the Grand Canyon and its magnificence, you wouldn't debate him on which sediment rock formation this is. Would you presume to debate him on that?
No.
You would assume he knows a lot more about this than you, right? But then in the middle of the tour, when he stops and looks at you, and in the middle of all this grandeur, he says, no, it's amazing that this all happened because 600 million years ago, 2 amino acids formed a single-celled protein one day. That is where you might stand up and just call BS, right?
For sure.
For sure. Because it's clear we have come to the point now where your expertise has ended and the worldview bias that you bring to the table begins. And one of the things that John has pointed out that I wanted to share with the audience is one explanation that is possible, and maybe even likely. But one explanation, one of the explanation that I've offered for why these models are off is they don't know where their baseline is, right? How do you flatten a curve, as I've said all along? How do you flatten a curve if you don't know when it begins? Okay? So that would be one explanation. And that's me trying to give them the most benefit of the doubt as I can. John has an alternative explanation, which I think has every bit as much of a chance to be true, particularly in the political environment we have lived in for these last few years. John's alternate explanation, gentlemen, is that this isn't a simulation. This is public policy spear phishing. That this was always intended to promote a certain slate of public policies. It was always intended, meaning that when we began our skepticism, I didn't know where this was going to lead. I even told and warned you at the beginning, folks. Asking these questions, we may not like the answers we're getting, right?
Sure.
We may find out everything that is at risk in our way of life is justified. So just be careful. Everybody says they like asking critical questions till they start getting answers they don't like. And then my experience has found they don't like it as much. Okay? But what John is saying is that's really not what the University of Washington set out to do. That this was always done with a bias in mind. That you must follow our recommendations. You must govern. That we're not merely providing you simulations. This is lobbying. We're lobbying you. This wasn't, hey, we were just sitting in a lab one day, did the math and came up with these numbers and now we're spooked and somebody get Washington on the line. That this really was done with the intent of some form of social engineering from the very beginning. And I don't know what their motivations were, but I think that is every bit as possible of an explanation for why this has been so wrong as everything else. Why? Don't we have a precedent for this? Isn't this how the climate cult works on everything?
Of course.
So it's not as if we haven't seen this sort of cloward pivoting of data in the past, right? Did we not see it on healthcare? We had to blow up our healthcare system for the same reason and do something even worse with Obamacare. This has been an MO in recent times, that a playbook we have seen before. So it's not like John is just sitting around in a tinfoil hat under quarantine, just playing, pin the conspiracy on the donkey. We have a precedent that indicates that at least this game plan, that doesn't mean it's being tried here.
It's being tried here.
I want the folks at the University of Washington, I tried, but Todd's not having it. I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. All right. I'm not saying that it is. Todd is. I'm not. Okay. I'm just saying it is a game plan that we have seen play itself out in other arenas, have we not?
Yeah. This is where I've lived all along on this, and it's only more true now that we get these inflated numbers out of New York. How many weeks ago did I tell you that that's not new? They are doing it with the flu. They've been doing it with the flu forever. They just took the flu's playbook to make it seem worse than it really is. They've been signaling their intentions along these lines for a very long time when it comes to virology, epidemiology. So of course, it's beyond credulity now to really think that this vast medical community was just this wrong all the time, I mean, then we need to get rid of med schools. We need to fire them. We may as well go with kill small animals and roll the bones in their blood to see how things are going to go. If they're just that purely wrong based on knowledge, they're deeply biased human beings who are trying to do the very next coup in a long line of coups to reimagine the world in a utopian fashion that
their definition of utopian anyway.
That no longer has to rely on the plebes that they loathe.
You're also seeing Major League Baseball with that massive antibody test. I think, were you the one that predicted that the left will use this as an argument for socialized medicine?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I believe that you're right. What is the merit of that argument? I mean, essentially, private industry has been ahead of government this entire time, right? It was sporting enterprises and businesses that were closing down before states did, out of concern of mass gatherings, right?
Yeah.
Okay. On both ends of this, they've been way ahead. Okay. On infrastructure production, way ahead.
That's why I think that's going to happen.
So Major League Baseball is going to do what appear, or is in the midst of already doing, I should say. They're doing it now. They're in the midst of doing independent themselves, what as of today would be the nation's largest antibody study. And that's another example of private industry being ahead of government. At what point has government been ahead of the curve here? At what point? I cannot think of one.
Only on shutting down churches. It's defining the curve then.
But when we, in mid-March, in early to mid-March, when the pendulum was clearly in favor of public health, private industry was ahead on that, right?
Yeah.
They were ahead on that. And now, we sit here in mid-April. Now the pendulum is swinging again back towards, is the cure worse than the disease, and socioeconomic concerns? Private industry is ahead of government again. How could you credibly, and I say this as someone who has been successful in my career in giving benefit of the doubt to the, not agreeing, but trying to empathize with where my opponent is coming from so I can do a better job of framing my own argument, making sure my own argument stands up to scrutiny, and then deconstructing theirs, right? Because if I can't deconstruct, here's how I approach argumentation. It's the old line about Bear Bryant. He can take yours and beat yours with his and beat his with yours, right? Flip rosters, he can still find a way to win the game. I always want to see if I can make your argument better than you. Because if I can, then I maybe have the wrong argument. And if I can't, then your argument's bad. I don't know how you plausibly make an argument out of this that more government is the answer when private industry has been ahead of government, both when it was a public health panic and now that it's a give me my country back movement. Private industry's been ahead of both of those curves.
Yeah, there's nothing, reason, science, data. It all speaks in the direction of, at the very least, skepticism. But Steve, we've come all the way back to the beginning of your very career, where you took the spirit of the age that you broke and shattered in your own life and now applied it to the world at large. It's that book, Nefarious Plot. It's happening right now. This is the spirit of the age. It is defying the most obvious truths about a scam that I've ever seen in my entire life, because it is gripping without respect to party. It's taking the minds over of everybody, where they are taking seriously the utterly unserious. It is a spirit of the age.
You want to talk about unserious? A whole bunch of people that thought President Trump was a racist xenophobe for restricting Chinese travel on January 31st are now pearl clutching and I can't evening and wailing and gnashing teeth over the U.S. defunding the World Health Organization, which waited until 40 days later. It was 40 days after the president initiated a restriction of travel from China. 40 days later.
Why don't you trust the experts, Steve?
40 days later that the World Health Organization finally called this a pandemic, 40 days later. But in early July, at the urging and at the face value claims of the Chinese, the World Health Organization did tell us we don't have to worry about person-to-person transmission of this virus, and there's nothing to see here, nothing to be worried about. Aaron, how do you hold those positions at the same time? How is the president a xenophobe for restricting Chinese travel? Then he's terrible for defunding the organization that waited 40 days too late to warn the world about this. How in your mind, other than just orange man bad, is there a logical way that you could hold those positions other than just I'm in a cult?
No, it's the same reason why the Washington Post literally called Senator Tom Cotton a conspiracy theorist a few months ago, for pointing out that this might have something to do with the Wuhan laboratory studying viruses. Might have something to do with that. Might have something to do with irresponsibility there or something nefarious there. And then comes out yesterday with an exclusive piece on, well, the United States has been worried about that lab for years now. It was Learning Chinese Today on Monday. Mm-hmm. If you remember, you spin me right round, baby, right round, like there is no mooring. This is the spirit of the age that Todd is talking about. When you become completely unmoored from anything resembling transcendent truth, when you're a moral relativist, when you're a moral selectivist, or when you're just when you're that given over to the spirit of the age, it doesn't self-awareness. What is that? It doesn't matter. All that matters is in the moment. In the moment, whatever helps you acquire power or push the narrative that helps people you like acquire power. That's the only thing that matters.
I agree.
And another example of this that I wish I would have put in the montage today that I just remembered, derelict in my duty of doing so. Chris Hayes from MSNBC tweeted a few weeks ago, the United States is literally doing the worst job in the world at containing the he said the COVID-19. Yesterday, he tweets, it's been patently obvious for a while now. There is no way on the face of this planet that China only has 3,300 deaths. You can't argue with that. The best you can do is ask questions, and then you'll get the demagoguery. But you can't. It's not a serious person. It's not a serious argument because they are a moving target because they are completely unmoored from anything resembling truth.
It's a real zombie apocalypse. It's happened. The masses are just walking around out there, utterly unmoored.
I'm looking at live video of this protest in Michigan. I'll tell you, it's bigger than I thought it was going to be. A lot bigger. A lot. Big enough that local news from Grand Rapids, where I grew up, which is about an hour away from Lansing, Grand Rapids has a couple of different media outlets on site right there filming this protest, this drive-in protest in Lansing. So, see, I think almost everything that has happened to this country in the last month has been all about political power and very little about this virus. I think if a Democrat were in the White House right now, you would not be locked down because the exact same forces that propelled this panic porn without any data to speak of and then want to continue to perpetuate it now that we are actually getting data. Because, man, when I think of the right-wing flat earth society, Stanford's number one on that list, right?
Sure.
Yeah. It's bad when guys at Stanford are going on Tucker Carlson's show to be heard. Do you know, that guy probably had to take a Silkwood shower after appearing on Fox News last night would be my guess, the way that they think at a place like Stanford. It is bad. It is bad You know the data is bad. When they went over at Stanford, they're like, bleep it, man. I guess we got to do Fox tonight.
Yeah.
You know it's bad. Because in their academic circles, that you're taking a major street cred hit, man. It in their circles, that's like me appearing on Russia Today or Al Jazeera America as a guest on a panel. You just, whatever you have to say is not worth the hit you're going to take with your own audience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. If Stanford is so desperate to challenge this that they're doing Fox News hits now, I think that speaks volumes. Hell, maybe we can get them on then. We should try. They might be desperate enough to say, we'll talk to, at this point, we got to talk to any right winger we can find. Okay.
This is the power of the gated community effect I always talk about, because in every other walk, even if they wanted to push back, they're like, the heck with it. I'm going to go off sailing or do whatever I do because I've got my life. Now they're locked down and they're pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. See, because I think almost everything that's happened to you and I as a country, folks, almost everything's been about power, and almost none of it's been about this virus. I think the forces that propelled this at the beginning are driven by power. We've seen that the last few years. I think the forces that now want to perpetuate it, even though the data doesn't justify it, even when you just miraculously decide in New York City we're going to count 3,700 more deaths that we cannot test or confirm as COVID-19. We're going to count them as SARS-2 coronavirus anyway, just so we can have the splashy death headline of we're now over 10,000 deaths. Okay? The same forces that propelled this are now wanting to perpetuate it. I think if a Democrat were in the White House right now, I don't think we'd be shut down anywhere. Might have some modifications, maybe. Maybe the baseball season might have been delayed a month, or maybe they would have, found some other way to play basketball or not. But I think if a Democrat were in the White House right now, this country would look a lot different than it does, because I think almost all of this now, almost all of it is about power.
New York would be shut down, and then the Democrats would be encouraging everybody else to go out and host fundraising potlucks to raise money for them.
Yeah.
That would be happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a Democrat president might as well just change. We were joking early on, maybe about changing the name of this virus to Afghanistan. We don't know what a win looks like, but we can't do anything because we might lose, right? You can might as well just change whoever the Democrat president is, just change their name to vaccine. Because that's effectively what they would be. I mean, you'd the hem of their garment. You'd be just healings be going on all over America right now, and I think, be going to the movies. I absolutely, based on what I've seen in the last month and I see right now, I absolutely believe that's true. I think if the Democrats were in power right now, your way of life would look largely unchanged. There'd be limited quarantining at most. That's what I think. I think New York City probably would have been quarantined because only Nixon could go to China, kind of a thing. They would have said, hey, we can't shut the government down for all of this. We got to move on. So we're going to quarantine New York City, and the rest of we had especially in an election year, you think the left media would be out there driving a Democrat to keep everything shut down well into the third quarter? Hell to the no. Hell to the no. And so, if my premise is correct, that this is all about power now, then you know what that means the solution must be. You and I have to take our power back. If this is all about the acquisition of power, then you and I have to take our power back. And there needs to be more of what is going on in Lansing, Michigan right now. Much more. And more frequent. And you need to let it be known, no is the answer. No. You will not put up with this. Always remember this. If other than Jesus died for your sins, if you don't ever remember anything else I've ever told you on this show or will ever say again, remember this. We are not a nation of laws, and we never have been. We are a nation of political will, and we always will be. You need to break their will. Because that's what this is now. It is not a public health debate. It's a contest of wills. One of my best buddies joins us right now. Congressman from the great state of Texas. Chip Roy joins us here. Chip, it's good to have you with us, brother. How are you?
Doing great, Steve. How are you?
Could be a little better, but I could be a lot worse. I want to, before I ask any questions to get answers to things I want to know about, I want you just to take the floor and kind of give your big picture view to our audience about just what you're thinking right now, what you see right now, etc. So the floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Steve. First of all, love the sweatshirt. It's a great message right now. We certainly need that. And, look, one of the things, I've got something I've written up that hopefully I'll post sometime today or tomorrow, or get out there in an op-ed. A lot of people don't know my father is a polio survivor. He was 7 years old in 1949 when we were pretty much at the peak of the polio pandemic of the time, right? And so we had roughly 300,000, mostly kids, young children, afflicted with polio between 1945 and 1955. 3,000 or so died in 1949, the year my dad got it. And it's interesting talking to him and his perspective about it, right? I mean, he, of course, is adhering to the recommendations to stay at home. He's 77. He has a tracheostomy right now because of complications related to polio. He and my mom are right there in the prime of the people who are most exposed to the current virus. And so they're taking all the precautions you would expect them to. But my dad feels strongly that we need to open up our country. He understands what the pursuit of happiness means. He's seen it firsthand. He has struggled for 70 years with the consequences of polio, difficulty walking, climbing upstairs, and all the things that came with it. But he knows at 77 and a half years old that he's now missing spring Little League with my son, his grandson, swim meets with his granddaughter, my daughter, seeing his daughter-in-law, me. I'm the least on that list, by the way. And, he's missing these things. We didn't get to go to Easter together. We didn't watch opening season baseball or watch the Masters together. Now, these things are trivial, right, in the grand scheme of things. But life, the pursuit of happiness, getting out there, doing what we're called to do. And for those of us of working age, getting out and fighting into the face of this virus, going out there and doing our job, keeping our economy going, being careful, washing our hands, using sanitizer, separating the old. But we are shutting down our economy, killing our livelihoods as Americans, doing the opposite of what Americans have done in the face of adversity in the past. And my dad sees it, and it's frustrating. We have to get our economy going again. Leadership needs to do it. And I don't really care how it polls. What I care about is what we need to do for the future of our children and our grandchildren to have a strong United States of America and a strong economy.
Your dad is reinforcing something I wrote for The Blaze several weeks ago about the difference between how our generation, our time, Chip, has handled this pandemic to previous eras. I've been going back and because people want to say, well, polio was a vicious virus, not exactly the same as something like this in terms of its communicability. So you look more at a Spanish flu. But if you look at polio, this raged in this country throughout much of the 19th century, well into the mid 20th century. They did 20 years of human trials for the vaccine before Jonas Salk thought it was safe enough to go on television and inject his own children with it to try to convince the American people that it was safe. And yet they still settled the Old West. They still had they still won the Industrial Revolution. We still won not one, but two world wars. And even when you go look at the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918 coming out of World War I, one of the most famous World Series of all time was that fall. The Cubs and the Red Sox had a hot young pitcher by the name of Babe Ruth. It went 7 games. Every game was sold out. And that was where you'd get up and read the newspaper and a Major League Baseball player had died of Spanish flu. People you knew had died. Maybe 500,000 Americans died in that year or two with Spanish flu, and we still had college football games that fall. We can't take our kids to the dentist. We can't go get a haircut. And I think what's changed with this is previous generations of this country, Chip, when they were like your father articulated, when confronted with his mortality, they understood time was finite. There was a limited amount of time to find a wife, lose my virginity, have kids, build a business, make a life, do things that make life worth living. They looked at that and it spurred them on to say, we need to maximize the time I have right now. We look at it and we're like, screw getting a wife. I've got internet porn. Let me just stay at home. Let me not do anything. Let me just panic. I think that's the difference in what's going on in our era compared to what your father described.
Yeah, look, I think this is at the heart of what we're facing right now, right? And I think the philosophy of this matters. A lot of people get wrapped into the details of what the president says or what they're saying at some news conference or what comment somebody makes. Yeah, The reality here is whether or not we're going to, as you said, get busy living, right? Doing what we know we need to do carefully, taking precautions, caring for those who need it. I'm a cancer survivor. I was immunocompromised for a while when I was going through that. We've got people who need to be cared for, and we should do that. And we can do that through charity, through hard work and taking care of our families, and yes, some government programs. And we should do these things, but we've got to continue our lives. I had my father-in-law this morning was getting surgery. He spent the last 48 hours having to go fight to get a hold of his doctor in order to deal with an infection that he's having to be concerned about and deal with because the doctor wasn't deemed essential because this was an elective knee surgery a month ago, right? Because he had a torn, he had an issue with his knee. But now he's got an infection and it's pretty bad. And he's having to go try to deal with the healthcare system that's shut down for the most part because we're responding to this virus. Like, this is not the way Americans do things. This is not how we respond. This is not what we did, whether it was in respect to previous pandemics or healthcare situations, or when we dealt with totalitarianism or fighting in Europe and dealing with enemies that have challenged us. We rise to the challenge. We face it head on. We find ways to adapt. We find ways to deal with it, but we don't cower in the corner afraid of what we're dealing with.
We found out yesterday that one of our kids may have a cavity and need a filling. If you wait too long, that may end up needing like a root canal, right? Can't go get a filling, which would take 15 minutes. A quick shot, they fill it up with numbness, you're out of there in 15 minutes. We can't go do that, but our dog has a cough. We can get him to the vet the very next day. We love our dog. There's something wrong with the fact, though, I can get my dog attention. I can't get my kid, Chip. Something's wrong with that, Chip. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get no disagreement here. And I think right now we're in a place where it's time for some of us to just step up and start leading. As my dad put it in a conversation we had, he said, look, I'm giving the government folks till about May 1st, and then I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do. And you know what? God bless him. I agree. And, those people in Michigan, some place near to your heart, just up the road, Michigan is we've got people who apparently I haven't seen much of the news. I saw it on Twitter, but are lining up to go to Lansing to basically protest in their cars that they ought to have the right to be out and about and tell the governor to pound sand. You know what? My opponent this fall, Wendy Davis, a fairly well-known leftist. The abortion
Barbie, if people remember her from a few years ago, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And by the way, look, she just raised $1.2 million, over double what I raised in the first quarter. So Democrats are all fired up that they can take this seat. But she was getting on me because I was on Mark Levin's show and we were talking about this same basic topic early last week. And I was praising a sheriff in Maine who had the audacity to basically tell the governor in Maine to pound sand because he wasn't going to enforce this stop everybody on the road business and not allow people to drive around. And I referenced that, we don't live in the kind of totalitarian states like communist Russia or China or Nazi Germany. And she's like, oh, you're going out comparing, our response to the coronavirus to Nazi Germany, right? As they always do to sort of make some political points. But the point is that sheriff is standing up for the things that are right, which is reasonable, responsible, a response to this pandemic situation, not the kind of paranoia and panic that we're seeing causing problems like we're seeing with the governor of Michigan.
I think that argument that Wendy Davis presented demonstrates a clear worldview difference between where she's coming from and, frankly, where you are coming from. That ultimately the presumption of particularly when it's something I agree with or somebody with a D after their name is in power, the presumption is of innocence, if not infallibility, is foisted upon a government action. When the reality is this country was founded by people who thought like this. The exact opposite, that there's a presumption of guilt on government, that government has to prove that it is necessary in any of these situations before we let it infringe upon our God-given rights, because ultimately that's what government by the consent of the governed actually means.
Well, I've referenced the pursuit of happiness a couple of times in this conversation relative to my father and to those that are trying to understand how to move through this in a way where we can, in fact, pursue happiness. And I know what all the naysayers will say, right? They're going to say, well, you can't pursue happiness if you're dead, because that's going to be the response, right? Because everybody's afraid of this virus. Look, I don't want my father, my mother, I don't want any loved one, my in-laws, me, my family, anybody to get this virus. It pains me every time I see someone get afflicted by it, just like any other situation, a car wreck or the flu or cancer, right? As a cancer survivor, that means a lot. But pursuit of happiness means something as well. And you referenced the founders, right? And what this was all about. And it meant something more, right? We've got enumerated rights in the Constitution, right? And a lot of people put stock in those enumerated rights, rightly so. They were specifically focused on to protect the right to free speech, the right to assemble, by the way, freedom of the press, our Second Amendment rights. I can go down the list of those enumerated in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But keep in mind that when we're talking the Declaration of Independence, right? And we talked about the pursuit of happiness, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration set the stage for what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were all about. It set the stage for what the greatness of this country has been and what it has meant to the world, to human flourishing, to prosperity, to lifespan increases, to what we've seen in terms of the advancement of civilization through the Industrial Revolution and through the mix of capitalism and freedom and what that has meant for everybody. And so pursuit of happiness means so much, including your livelihoods, your ability to take care of your family, to put a meal on the table for your family, to have that sense of worth, but that importance of being able to care for yourselves and others. That is what is so great about the American experience, and that is what the pursuit of happiness is all about.
I've got about 3 minutes here, Chip. If you had an audience with your Governor Greg Abbott, who's already indicated he wants to help take the lead on states reopening up, clearly you can see the president's patience with this over the last few days and launching preemptive credibility strikes on the media, assuming that they're going to do whatever they can to leverage him to stay shut down long enough to cause a Great Depression. Clearly his patience with this is all wearing thin as well, okay? But if you were with them right now, what advice, counsel would you give both your governor and the president for the decisions they're about to make?
Well, first of all, I'd like to compliment the governor for trying to walk the balance appropriately in Texas of figuring out how to stave off the virus, get our healthcare situation under control, make sure we've got beds, make sure we've got what we need to deal with it, and then protect the ability to kind of relaunch our economy. Don't exactly know what he's got in store this week, but he's been doing a good job being calm, deliberate, have his hand on that, trying to move the state forward. And I think the president has actually done a pretty decent job of what he's trying to do and move everything forward. Look, he's having a press conference every single day. We're going after it, trying to get all of the PPP, the masks, all of the PPE, and get all of the materials that we need to be able to deal with it, parked to ship there in New York. I can go down the list of things that we've been trying to do and try to get the test, sent throughout the country. But here's something that's important. A lot of our smart folks, right, have been getting all wound up about what the president said with respect to "I have full authority," right, or whatever the exact quote was. Keep in mind, I headed the 10th Amendment Center at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. I've written a lot on federalism. I work for Governor Perry. I believe in federalism. But let's keep in mind that it's a two-way street. Governors and local authorities, right, who are shutting down economies, shutting down our livelihoods, but yet then want the federal government to backstop them, to give them unlimited mountains of cash in order to be able to continue to shut things down. That is not the kind of federalism or cooperative federalism that some people like to use that we're talking about here. And so this is what is really important about what the president is trying to do. And I think it is important for the president to set a date. I called for it on March 20th in an article in National Review, a date certain for us as Americans nationwide to be targeting getting our economy going. Governors can make some variables and some decisions. New York might be harder hit and have to deal with it differently. Texas might have something different than Iowa. But you know what? The responsibility of the president is to set the tone, to set an objective of where we need to go, and we need to march forward and do so responsibly.
Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for everything as always. All right. God bless. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. God bless. Take care.
You bet. Congressman Chip Roy with us here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Any thoughts on that conversation, gentlemen? Aaron, you've been quiet so far today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is not a conversation we can have enough because fundamentally, as you talked about, just getting outside of the models and getting outside of the data, our response to this has been fundamentally anti-American. At best, and at worst, it's been dehumanizing. Because we are not creatures. We've lost sight, and I don't think it's any accident at all that as this culture becomes more secular, the less we have a grasp on what it means to be human. We were created for community. We were created to be little creators. How much creating can you do at home? How much living can you do when you're stuck? You can't live a life like that. So it is fundamentally dehumanizing. But that's our response. That's been the public policy response even of this. What's more disheartening than that is how many people just go along with it and give in to the panic and give in to the paranoia, which is what I see more and more of all of the time. That is the thing that, again, I'm going to repeat this as long as I need to, even more than opening up the economy, which needs to happen. The paranoia and the pathology that we're going to see from a lot of people, from vast swaths of people about this virus, about mortality itself, that is going to be the bigger problem. And that's a problem that no amount of stimulus money, that no amount of entertainment returning like sports, that no amount of anything is going to fix, minus revival. And that's where we keep coming back to. Mm-hmm. And that's as big and as much of a part of this as anything we've talked about regarding the science.
I sent a note to my pastor yesterday. This country's hanging, I think, by a very slim thread. And it's in the revival or bust mantra we've had for years in this show, those birth pangs are getting closer and closer, Todd.
It was relatively recently where you, Steve, talked about, we were talking about a particular issue, but you said if we can't actually embrace the truth of this and why it's worth fighting for, we may just find our spot at the government teat because we're just not, the game is over.
Right.
Well, that absolutely applies writ large. It is get busy living or get busy dying time.
No, you might have had it the first time. A little Freudian slip, brother. Yeah.
You cannot go back to the way things were. Now that you've been shown how little value the experts think you have, here on Lockdown, if you are willing to go back to the same scam that brought us to this point, you utterly deserve what you get. You've got to fight in a whole new way going forward. It'll never be the same again. And if you let it be, God help you.
We'll come back hour 2. It's time for Buy, Sell, or Hold. Should be tons of fun. We'll get to that when we return here in a moment on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. And we are back with hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. Don't forget, if you do listen to the podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. The more of those we get, it helps our show to grow. And the powers that be here at the Blaze notice. And the more they notice, the more likely we get to be here at the Blaze. And I think we all agree. The last thing America needs right now is 3 more unemployment claims. So keep those 5-star reviews coming. Thanks to all of you that have left us one of those reviews already. If you haven't and you like the show, pardon me, what are you waiting for? What else you got going on today? Lowe's again? I mean, really, nothing else to do. Yeah. About 5 minutes of spare time to bang one of those out on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, please. Thank you very much. And thanks to the thousands of you that have done that for us already. Steve at stevedeace.com is how you can email the show. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. Coming up later today at Blaze TV, we will get to the overtime and we're going to discuss some of the proposals that are out there about getting sports going again. What would it take to get sports going again in America? Since the president broached that subject yesterday, Vice President Pence has a conversation with the NCAA's College Football Playoff Committee later today about what's in store or could be in store from a college football perspective. So we will have that conversation today at blazetv.com/Deace. If you're already a Blaze TV subscriber, you just hang out, wait for it to get posted there later today. We'll record it right after the show. If you're not yet a Blaze TV subscriber, become one today. Get the cheapest discounted subscription we've ever offered at the Blaze. $30 off an annual subscription, comes out to just about $5 and change a month. Go to blazetv.com/Deace and use the promo code Steve. Promo code Steve at blazetv.com/Deace. And let's get to one of our favorite segments of the week. Each week, it is called Buy, Sell, or Hold, and it's brought to you by our friends over at Home Title Lock, who want to warn you, learn from what Deborah learned the hard way, how easy it is for thieves to steal your home. They went online. That's where they found her title. They then forged the document to appear as if she sold her home to them, but she had not. And then they borrowed thousands against her home's equity. They didn't even realize, Deborah and her family, what had happened until the foreclosure notices began to show up, as well as even an eviction notice, over $80,000 in equity gone. Then she had to spend a fortune getting it back. Your bank cannot protect you. Your mortgage lender cannot, but for pennies a day, Home Title Lock will. But first things first, go to HometitleLock.com right now, register your address, and find out if your home's title has already been targeted. You can do that right now at HometitleLock.com. And then if you decide to sign up, you'll get 1 month for free. Right now, 1 month for free at HometitleLock.com if you use the promo code Steve. 1 month for free, HometitleLock.com, promo code Steve. So here's how buy, sell, or hold works. Aaron, usually with help from you in the audience, is going to give Todd and I a series of predictions and propositions. You and I will then decide, are we buying that? Are we selling that? Maybe even with a good reason or two why. Holds are suspended. Since we're suspending lots of other freedoms in America, right now we don't have the freedom to hold. We must give an opinion. So it is really just buy or sell for now. All right. But maybe one day, if there's a vaccine, we can bring the holds back. Is that fair?
Yes.
Have a hold vaccine.
You know, I get warm fuzzies when we talk about this.
I know you do. All right, let's begin. Aaron, go.
All right. I submitted the first buy, sell, hold submission of the week to myself. It goes like this. Todd's keyboard will be missing the B, L, A, C, K, M, I, R, and O keys within the next 30 days.
How's that? What is? I'm trying to figure out. What's that a spell? Spell
Black
it out.
Mirror.
Black Mirror. Oh, gotcha. All right, Todd, that's your thing. I'll let you. I see our new buddy at the former New York Times reporter, Alex Berenson, has been picking up this trope and is doing Black Mirror updates now. So emulation, that imitation is the highest form of flattery, right?
Roll, baby, roll. Yeah. You know, big tent. Well, I can't. Is this being asked for nefarious reasons?
No, just joking.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't have them. They're not going to go away. I mean, right now, like I said, I'm dead serious about the spirit of the age thing, and I sensed it ratcheting up. Oz goes up to 11 instantly. I mean, I don't remember the exact day I started black mirroring this thing, but it's been there since almost the beginning of the epidemic. It's been longer than a month now, and I'm not stopping until it goes away. It's a perfect reminder every single time that this is Alice in Wonderland stuff, man.
Yeah, I will totally buy. It goes to what I said a week ago when the models were clear. It was clear the models had fallen apart. The projections were just not going to realize themselves. And so government never shows, preemptively anyway, humility and deference. It always has to have those things, those characteristics forced upon them by those that they are governing. All right. And that's what people in North Carolina are attempting to do. That's what yesterday. It's what people in Michigan are doing right now as we speak. Force some empathy and deference and humility upon their government. And how governments typically roll is until they find out you're serious about that humility and deference, the petty tyrannies get pettier. The gross misconduct gets grosser. And that's when you'll really get into Black Mirror territory. So yeah, I think you'll be wearing those keys out here for the rest of this month.
And this is why I only watched one episode of that, because I didn't.
It hit too close to home for you, man.
Well, I knew this was possible. Just seeing it, I don't need to be convinced about it. A lot of other people do. I didn't. I was like, yeah, that's dead on, and I'm going to move on to something else because that level of truth over and over and over again in that sensory overload. Mm-hmm. I believe it. I know it's true. My God says so, and the reality that I've seen with my own eyes about how humans have chosen to say men are women and women are men, and bags of baby body parts don't lead you to do a damn thing. I knew that was true, so here we are.
To go to that debut episode of Black Mirror that so freaked you out.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And so for those who haven't seen it, the debut episode of Black Mirror is a terrorist claims that he's planted bombs, right?
An American terrorist.
Terrorist, yeah. Has claimed that he has planted bombs throughout London, and he will detonate them and kill, a whole bunch of people, right?
Well, he's kidnapped.
That's what it is. Yes. That's what it is. I forgot.
He kidnapped a girl.
He's kidnapped a girl. All right. An American is called in to say he's kidnapped a girl and he's going to murder this girl unless the Prime Minister of England goes on television and commits an act of bestiality on camera.
That's it.
That's the whole plot. And they try to figure out halfway. The first half is trying to figure out, is this a credible threat? Is it a prank? But the panic then, as this makes its way through all the various media there in the UK, the panic becomes so massive that he has no choice, he believes politically, but to commit this vile act. And so he does, only to find out that the whole thing was a hoax, just to see if they could force the issue on that level.
Because of the voyeuristic, the panic combined with the voyeuristic appetite, everybody went inside to watch this happen.
Yep.
Nobody was above it. So the terrorist ends up in broad daylight driving out into an empty street and just dropping the girl off because he got what he wanted. He didn't want the death. He wanted to show that how he could puppet master the entire thing, and he did.
So let's play this out in real time. Let's say the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or the University of Pittsburgh or this Israeli science lab, these entities we know right now are racing to clinically trial a vaccine for this. Right? There's at least those three. There may be others. Those are the three that I've read about. So the Bill and Melinda Gates' labs, University of Pittsburgh, and what was the other one? Oh, Israel's labs think that they've advanced enough progress on a vaccine for this to begin some form of human trial. And let's say, those human trials are, one of them comes forward and says, the human trials are good. We can begin mass consumption of this. And the lab is broken into. And like master samples of this vaccine are taken so that it cannot be, it would slow down the rate of its production. And whoever took it said that they will not give it back unless President Trump agrees to go on television and commit an act of bestiality, similar to this opening episode of Black Mirror. What would the reaction be in our country to something like that?
That's why I never went back and watched another episode.
Because it hit too close to home.
Yeah.
Is there not, would not CNN and MSNBC's entire primetime lineups?
Do you want old people to die?
Demand that the president do this. Demand. Let's face it, there'd be some people that we have watched melt down in embarrassing fashions to the point I had to just mute them. I couldn't even watch anymore. It was such living dude code violations. You couldn't go back and watch any more Black Mirror. I can't do it, man. I'm 46. I'm trying to keep my testosterone level high as it is at my age. I can't watch you mangina. I can't do it. It's like I'd rather listen to fingernails on a chalkboard, so I just have to tune you out. I can't do it because it's like it bothers me. I feel like my voice gets higher. I start crossing my legs different. I want to pee sitting down. I can't do it. All right, so I have to tune you out. I have to pretend you don't exist anymore. Those people would be all over social media right now. Hey, don't you think we at least should have to consider this?
Sure.
Wouldn't they?
Yes.
Hey. Remember, weren't they the same people that said, hey, if you care more about your 401k than Granny, you're a terrible person. If you don't believe the death counts of this, the death rate of this virus, then that's like denying the resurrection. Didn't we see some of that stuff from some of these people? Okay.
Loving Jesus right now means you need to sodomize that pig.
Why wouldn't they say that? Hey, you guys say you want your country back. This will get you your country back. We'll get this vaccine if the president only agrees to do this, right? Wouldn't we see at least some credible movement of people with check marks and audiences that would say this is a plausible outcome to consider? Don't you believe that?
Spirit of the age, baby.
I agree. I absolutely believe they would. You bet.
I just don't want Todd's brilliant comment like 3 seconds ago to just go without note. Loving Jesus right now means you need to sodomize this pig. That is
somebody with a blue check mark.
Yep.
Right or left would tweet that. I believe it. Yeah.
Yep. We'll go to Konstantinos Roditis, who sponsors but does not fund this segment, who says in the next few days there will be a large and armed but peaceful protest in Raleigh, like we saw in Virginia when they tried to strip Virginians of their Second Amendment rights.
I'll buy only if, I don't know about the next few days, but if you wanted to create the environment that would cause people to go, oh, hell no, and turn the amp up a little higher, it's what the Raleigh Police Department pulled yesterday. Will do it. And I mean, just the snarky dismissiveness. They even went back hours later and then went back and reset their own tweets all over again. All right. That level of the snarky dismissiveness is the kind of stuff that makes people think I might just drive to Raleigh my own self and take part, just because that's anathema to at least whatever's left of America. So I'll buy that.
Trust the experts. I'm deeply irrevocably cynical right now. I don't even remember the context of saying yes or no is a good thing or a bad thing right now. I mean, it would. Yeah. I think we're going to see that, because listen, state, federal, local, legislative, executive, judicial, there's no magic pixie dust at any level there. Is because you have the badge, or because you've been sworn in, or because whatever, or if you're a scientist or whatever, you're not automatically right about anything. And the people saying as much are terrified of their own shadow right now. Take your country back.
And the fact that Governor Newsom in California yesterday, now I read through his recommendations. I don't think they're very realistic, okay? But the fact that he even put out a plan with specifics on how to reopen the state. If you look at it as a political negotiation, if he feels as if he needs to politically start with even offering a plan in the first place, rather than, because remember, a week ago it was, well, I don't think you can go watch the Rams and the Chargers play on Labor Day weekend when it's 100 degrees in LA, because it won't be safe, right? After the president had all the calls with all the sports commissioners, hours later, Gavin Newsom, I don't know that we'll be able to do that. And then the next day, he let it be known they're giving back like 500 ventilators that the state doesn't need anymore. Okay. If in the span of a week, you go from, I don't know that you will be able to sit outside in smoldering heat in Los Angeles and watch a football game 4.5 months from now, to here's my plan to reopen the state. I think a lot of conservative media looked at the plan's specifics and dismissed it as not credible and serious. And I understand why we did that, but I think we're missing the bigger story, in my opinion. The bigger story is that he put out a plan at all. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The bigger story is, a week ago, this was the guy saying, I don't think you can go sit outside and watch a football game in 4.5 months. And a week later, he's got a plan for reopening the state. Now, you may not like the specifics of it and realize that it's probably not plausible, but that's a hell of a devolution for one politician to make in a week, guys. In a week, we went from I'm pretty confident you won't be able to do something 4.5 months from now, to here's my plan for you to be able to do something now. Don't you think that's an interesting? I think that tells you. Here's what it tells me: if the governor of California believes that it is either politically safe or necessary, and I don't know him or his state well enough to know which one it is, because I certainly don't believe it's because of altruism. Okay, so it's either he's getting pressure from his Hollywood buddies. You know, dude, Disney World's laying off 40,000 people. We're pushing all these movies back. Now we've got next year's summer movie schedule may be impacted because we've spent an entire month of not filming any of these things. So we may get screwed this summer and next summer because of the backlog of filming and then the pushback of these release dates. He's getting all those calls. So either he believes that it's necessary or it is safe for him to politically offer this within a week of saying he didn't think the NFL could happen in 4.5 months. I think that indicates to me how this conversation is politically accelerating.
Well, and also, I hope nobody missed it, but yesterday our guest, John Daniel Davidson, when he mentioned, guys, there aren't enough cops. We are seeing that day by day. Mm-hmm. Okay, they messed with you on Easter. Now we got North Carolina and Michigan protests. If the people decide that this is America, damn it, there aren't enough cops.
Yeah, remember, Jesus said the children of men are smarter than the children of light. And one of the reasons why pagans have done things like protest, I'm not saying we become unruly like them. Okay, it's called civil disobedience for a reason.
Correct.
All right. But one of the reasons why pagans have used the tactics of mass protest in the past is because you can't arrest them all. There's safety in numbers. There's not enough brown shirts to go out there and arrest everybody that in every dude in 1975 in San Francisco in leather chaps holding hands with his boyfriend. If they all go out there, they can't all be arrested at the same time or whatever the cause celeb was, the bra burn, whatever it was. The reason they do that is because they all can't get arrested at the same time.
And which is why a good cop right now is saying, I ain't the one. Because they know there aren't enough cops. I can't do my job well with what you're forcing on me. This is impossible.
Right. Yeah, and there's still not enough jail cells, even with all of the convicts that they've released. So let's see. Moving on. Chia Jesus Nehemiah chapter 5 says, government pushes for tracking possible COVID transmissions through smartphone apps is actually a Trojan horse for tracking real-life interactions of people. Jinx.
Yes. Put everything on the table right now. Everything. And remember something, a lesson I learned, I will admit when I lose arguments. I've probably lost more than I'm willing to admit, though. Right. I should throw that out there.
Bye.
I don't believe that proposition was offered, Todd. But now that we know, we know where you stand on it. Should it come up in the future?
I said it with confidence because you and I are spirit animals.
Yes,
on that. Spirit brothers.
So I'm sure I have lost more than I am willing to admit. But when it becomes clear to me I have lost one, I will admit it. All right. An argument that I have lost to my libertarian friends is it ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun argument. For everything you ask government to do affirmatively, make sure you're okay with someone who, when the Pharaoh who knows not Joseph is elected, so they get to wield that power, right? So what's going on right now with letting churches and ministries take part in the SBA loan process through the stimulus package. And, you've had our buddy Senator Cruz and others have said, hey, they're absolutely going to protect, it's the Trump administration, they're going to protect your religious freedom and things of that nature. I absolutely believe the Trump administration would protect my religious freedom on that. But there's a realistic chance, I don't think it's high right now, but it's realistic, meaning it's higher than 20%, higher than 30%. That 6 months from now, right? Yeah, about 6 months from now, Donald Trump will be on his last days as president of the United States. And so when the Pharaoh who knows not Joseph gets elected, that doesn't believe in your religious freedom, because you're to often use it to point out the ungodliness of his own policies, right? Why wouldn't they just pull a Darth Vader on you and say, hey, we're altering the deal and pray it don't alter it any further? We'll make sure those loans are forgiven provided you change your stance on LGBTQ, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right?
Right.
So just be careful at the precedent you're setting. Right now, it may seem reasonable to you in order to get your way of life back. You know what? I trust my Republican governor. I trust my Republican president. Okay. Well, after you get your way of life back, where's all that data going to go? Where's that app going to go? They're just going to mothball it. Hey, we don't need it anymore. Just be very careful of what you assent to. Okay. And understand that anything you assent to now has the potential to be used against you later on.
Well said. Moving on. Russ Salerno says within 45 days, the lamestream media began producing op-eds questioning the seriousness of the Wuhan, China virus pandemic and claim Orange Man Bad hyped it up to make himself look like a hero before the election.
I love that level of cynicism, man. I'm going to buy it just because
they've spun around on everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm at least living, Russ, in the neighborhood that you already reside. I mean, didn't we already see Chris Hayes put something out last week that he goes, I don't want to, didn't he say something on Twitter, something like, I really don't want to even think about maybe the reason the models were way wrong is so they could over-exaggerate this and then look good later. Didn't Chris Hayes just say this last week?
Not sure if it was Chris Hayes, but it was some blue check.
See,
yeah, I thought it was Hayes that said this.
This is what they can do and why journalism is magical and not at all broken.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they will tell you now, trust the experts. Next, and then down the road, they'll just say, hey, well, we trusted the expert. They can always seem like the smarty pants because we were just pro-America then. They can always move the goalposts. They are experts of that, largely because we keep letting them do it over and over again. So buy it.
Yep. Chuck Gregory says multiple governors will get recalled by voters in 2021 due to overreach and abuse of power during the Wuhan virus crisis.
I'm going to sell.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because of what's happening in Michigan. Now, I don't know that this is true, and it's probably not. But let me give you a plausible theory. You guys heard this conversation I was on with the little birdie of mine who knows our beloved governor here in Iowa very well. And he was basically giving me a heads up that his sources over there at the governor's mansion said that she was going to come out and issue a shelter in place today. Right? You guys,
Yep.
I was literally having that conversation up to like 20 seconds before we went on the air.
Which is probably part of the reason my blood pressure was going through the roof when the show started.
Because mine was there too. Okay. Right now in Iowa, what is it, Aaron? 120 people are in the hospital statewide or something for
check on that for
COVID-19. I think that's about the number. 120, and understand they're like the only 120 people in a hospital in Iowa right now because no one else is getting admitted for like anything. Right? We're just like everywhere else in the country, we're shutting medical facilities down. And so this little birdie is one of maybe my all-time most trusted little birdie. And so if he's giving me a heads up right before I go on the air with something he knows is going to make my blood boil, he at least had to believe his source on this was pretty good. Think that's at least fair?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because he also knows me well enough to know, don't trigger me on something like that unless it's going to happen. Right? Because the links I will go to make my rage accessible for you to hear can be legendary of what I'm capable in these situations. So the fact that he was giving me this heads up indicates to me that he had a source that at least he thought was good enough to give me the what's up, right? She has her press conference. It actually went on first hour today, and it was all pretty positive. And he texted me during the last commercial break. He was like, this is like, totally different than what I was told, which is he was happy for. But it was basically a 180 from the heads up that he was given that he then passed on to me. Is it remotely possible that his source was right an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, and then a bunch of folks started seeing the video footage coming out of Lansing, Michigan, and saw, miles of parades of vehicles
asked and answered.
It's at least possible. Who knows? Is it a 20% proposition, 50-50? It's at least higher than 10% that's possible, don't you think?
Yes.
At least higher. Okay? And that's why I don't think you'll see multiple. In fact, let me add this. If it requires multiple recalls, then we failed. These people should be put on notice. This should only require really only making an example out of one. The Fonzie rule. How come no one ever went back how come Fonzie asked somebody to join him in his office, in the men's room? Every episode of Happy Days, thereabouts. But no one ever did. Because after he whooped that ass one time, you knew what happened if you visited with him in his office, right? You set the precedent, okay? That this is what happens. Don't cross that line.
And remember, Fonzie was my size.
Yes. And Henry Winkler is a small dude, okay? So just make an example out of Gretchen Whitmer would be my advice. If you make the right example out of her, particularly because you've already got organic momentum there. You don't have to contrive this in 7 or 8 other states. Organically, this momentum has just happened on its own, and she's fed that flame. Make an example out of her. And if you do that, you don't have to worry about massive recalls and keeping people's attentions and getting on ballots. You'll have made an example out of her that the rest of her brethren will understand and pay attention to what that precedent means for them.
I love that answer. Bye.
All right, this one in about 60 seconds. Coronavirus equals Afghanistan says for indoor entertainment, the top 10 family games. He says number 11, Pandemic. Just kidding. Number 10, Clue. Number 9, Twister. No. Number 9, Twister. Number 8, Dominoes. Number 7, Yahtzee. Number 6, Scrabble. Number 5, Chess or Checkers. Number 4, Life. 3, Monopoly. 2, Uno. Or 1, Sorry.
There's several on there that our family is a fan of, but if I buy a list that has Clue ranked at the very bottom, I will be given an involuntary vow of celibacy for the foreseeable future, because that is my wife's absolutely favorite game. All right. She loves the game. And it's one of her favorite movies is the adaptation of the game from the 80s. I have to sell that for my own self-preservation because of your obscenely low ranking of Clue. So I have to sell.
I'll sell. My kids have been trying to get me to play games. I'm not like, I love them, but I do not do like the board games. So this Sunday we're about to play some game. We played a couple rounds of some game. And then one of my daughters says, Dad, how do you play poker? So
now we're cooking with gas.
On Easter Sunday, this Catholic taught my 4 daughters
That's about
to
the
play
most
Texas
Catholic
Hold'em.
thing ever.
Yeah.
All right. Spending an Easter Sunday teaching your kids how to play cards. That's one of the most Catholic things. That's how I learned how to play poker. I went to poker night at the local Catholic parish there in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's how I learned.
They've played on their own the last 3 days with jelly beans. I'm so proud.
We'll come back. More buy, sell, or hold here in a moment. That's true. Part 2 of Rid-U-Zone, or part 2 of Buy, Sell, or Hold, brought to you by Rid-U-Zone. If you are struggling with the grazing, the overeating, a lot of times we overeat when we're bored. How do you get those cravings and portion sizes under control? Well, Rid-U-Zone could be the answer, because it's the only FDA-accepted product that includes OEA. That's the naturally occurring molecule that helps you feel full faster while burning stored fat, also therefore reducing your calorie intake, making it easier for you to resist those cravings and all that extra grazing and extra calorie consumption we're doing right now. Because let's face it, a lot of that extra calorie consumption isn't, man, let me go grab another piece of that beef jerky. No, it's a lot of that extra calorie consumption isn't, I need an extra handful of cheese curds. A lot of that extra calorie consumption is, I'm going to grab another one of those Star Crunches from Little Debbie. That's what a lot of that extra calorie consumption is. Another bowl of cereal. Can I keep it real?
Of course.
A lot of that extra calorie consumption isn't like, I'm bored, let me double up on protein bars. No, that's not what a lot of that extra calorie consumption is. All right. And so that's where Rid-U-Zone comes in. It's not just limiting those calories, but the empty ones to boot. If you want to give it a shot, it's up to 65% off right now. Incredible discount if you go to riduzone.com, riduzone for riduzone.com. Use my name, Steve, as the promo code. You'll get up to 65% off. And get free shipping as well. Heck of a deal, up to 65% off and free shipping at riduzone.com, promo code Steve. Let's get to part 2, buy, sell, or hold. Aaron.
Why is every single NFL team redesigning their logo and uniform this year? That's not a submission. I'm just complaining.
Although, unlike the Falcons ones that I think we all thought they were nice, just unnecessary, but not as nice as the ones they were wearing, right? I like what the Browns have released today. You know why? Because it's the actual Cleveland Brown jersey. Classic look from when we were growing up.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, they're essentially going back to that uniform. So I'm all for it. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on. Jacob Hibbard says, The Last Crusade is better than Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I think this is a worthy opinion. I don't agree with it. But I just have such great nostalgia for Raiders of the Lost Ark from my childhood that I think I'm incapable of an objective opinion on this. So I will politely sell. I'm not like offended. I don't think your opinion has no merit. The Last Crusade's an exceedingly well-made film. I just have such a nostalgic buildup for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is one of my all-time 10 favorite movies that I have to admit that my nostalgia may overvalue how good of a movie it is by comparison to The Last Crusade.
I will buy, I don't have a preference, but if you have a movie of undeniable greatness and then you produce something that can equal it, I think almost that alone makes it greater, even if it's technically a tie, because which is why I continue to be amazed by the entire Avengers, because they kept doing it again and again and again. I couldn't even attempt to put in order. People have been trying over this break, like rank them from greatest, all the Avengers movies. How? I mean, they just kept...
Because they built on one another.
Oh, it was just amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Michelle Pfeiffer says, after having started to run businesses underground for the last 2 or 3 weeks of April, non-essential businesses or business owners will flip middle fingers and begin to open up.
I will absolutely buy that.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Yep.
Let's see. Trent Johnson says, cross country or some type of trail racing should be a sport in the Olympics.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I'll buy.
I guess it's not... It is. Yeah. It'd be better than a lot of the sports that are already allowed to be there. So
we're going to get into this more in the overtime today, but the news came out yesterday that the PGA Tour is targeting a June 11th?
Yeah.
To relaunch their 2020 schedule. Can someone explain to me why they ever stopped playing golf?
No.
I'm serious. Even with the data. Even with the doomsday models that maybe 2 million to 240,000 people could die. Ambient crowd noise at a PGA golf event isn't really a major factor. Anyway, you have to be quiet most of the time you're there. Anyway, the golfers are often spaced far apart from one another, even when they're in the same pairing together. They are, they're not. It's outdoors in a warm climate. Does anybody understand why they ever stopped playing golf? Why we didn't have a Masters? Does this make any sense?
There's something really, really nefarious and weird about all this. It just seems like there is absolutely no room on any level for having anything that resembles normalcy or fun or triviality.
Yes. Again, trying to give the benefit of the doubt. I understand, as much as I love, you guys know it's my all-time favorite event every year. I understand why... even though I thought it was over the top, but I intellectually understand, particularly at the time, what we were being told. We didn't know. We had no real data. I get why, like, the NCAA tournament was canceled. I get why in the NBA and NHL with all those indoor facilities, climate controlled in the wintertime. I get it. I get that. Explain to me why, though, golf, where the fans are not necessary. It's 2 guys or 3 max to a pairing, and it's easy to social distance them from one another, and they're outdoors in a warm climate. Can someone explain to me why that ever had to be canceled? Because
of that, amongst that smart set, there is something that is more all-encompassing in terms of what drives them than profit. Right at the beginning, when they got down the NCAA on Twitter, people were saying, well, this is how you know it's real, because look, they're turning down millions. These people are selfish. Mm-hmm. Well, look at how they make their millions. But in big business these days, both the NCAA, they are as driven by political correctness as anybody. That's how they make their profit in many respects these days. Mm-hmm. And the people in golf are the same way. They want to be amongst the smart set, and they don't want to be made fun of at the country club.
And they held out longer than any other sport did, remember?
But then ultimately they caved. Reason. I don't want to hate old people.
Yeah. Because do you guys know what kind of number the NFL draft, other than live NFL and college football, is the highest rated event on ESPN every year. Anyway, do you know what kind of obscene number that's probably going to pull next week?
Oh, I might watch it, and
I know you hate it.
Yes.
Okay. Because of the desperation factor. Not to mention, none of your shows are doing new episodes right now because they're backlogged on production. So a lot of your shows that you were getting ready for, like, May conclusions and cliffhangers and plot resolutions, a lot of that stuff's put off right now because they had to stop filming a month or two ago. And I mean, the NFL draft is going to pull a monster number next week. What would the Masters have pulled this weekend? Even sitting out there with no fans and just watching three guys golf quietly, which is really what you're watching on TV anyway. Okay. Can you imagine what number a Masters would have pulled this past weekend?
I would have watched it.
I mean, could it have pulled a Super Bowl kind of number?
Yes.
I think it's possible, at least in this country. I do think it's possible.
Particularly since the weather sucked everywhere.
And particularly
tornadoes in the south.
Tornadoes in the south. It was snowing and cold and windy here in the Midwest. Yeah. You can't go anywhere out west. I mean, and then imagine if a Tiger or a Rory or somebody like that was in the hunt on the final day. I think you would have pulled numbers that golf in this country has never pulled on television.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand why they had to stop going.
Yeah, you do. Spirit of the age.
That's because it's the only answer.
Yes.
Right? That you're doing to me now. This is your version of, you know why there's no good reasons, Todd? Because there aren't any good reasons.
Yeah.
You're doing it to me now. Right.
Let's see. Russell Lerno is double dipping because he put together a list, the top 10 classic ice cream truck choices.
Ooh. I am intrigued with this one.
Number 10, Orange Dream Bar. Number 9, Snow Cone. Number 8, Blue Turbo Rocket. Number 7, Ice Cream Sandwich. Number 6, Chocolate Eclairs. 5, Strawberry Shortcake. 4, Drumstick. 3, Screwball. 2, Chipwich. And 1, Choco Taco.
So a couple of things. Number 1, being in Iowa, you're not allowed ice cream trucks. Aaron, have you ever even been to an ice cream truck in your life?
See, there was one in my hometown that operated for a little while.
Okay, so basically an act of civil disobedience?
I think so.
Because they're like illegal in Iowa because one kid got kidnapped or ran over once, and we make laws like that in Iowa. One bad thing happens to one person. That's why something bad happened to one kid on Halloween one night 50 years ago, and now we have to do Beggar's Night, right? That's how we roll. It's a very passive-aggressive state here, all right? So...
it's so true.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Iowa Ice.
I mean, we elected
the dark side.
We sent Chuck Grassley and Tom Harkin together to the Senate for like 20 years, guys. Okay. I mean, it's a very passive aggressive state. Okay. And, so I don't know that you guys, did you have ice cream trucks in Wisconsin?
Oh,
okay.
yes.
So in Florida, they were massive, obviously, because it's 90 degrees there year round. So, I mean, when I was a kid, we went to the ice cream truck growing up in Orlando and Castleberry, Florida, like almost every single day. All right. Now, so that's the first disclaimer. The second one is I'm going to rank anything chocolate higher than anything else. All right. So the drumsticks are too low. I'm a big drumstick guy. The drumsticks have got to be higher. Fine with the Choco Taco. The eclairs have got to be higher. I do agree, though. I love the choice of having the strawberry shortcake that high because among the non-chocolate flavored entities, that would be my number one.
That was my go-to.
Yeah. That would be my number one. And then put it back up there just for a second. But I got to call Cell on the Blue Turbo Rocket that low. Because that was one of those ones. I don't know how it was where you live, but in Florida, that was sometimes you couldn't get your mom to give you the 50 cents for the eclair or the drumstick, but moms would hand you like the quarter for the Blue Rocket. You maybe get that out of her. You know that hit the spot as a backup plan. So I got to go higher with the Blue Rocket. Got to go higher than that. Overall, though, good list.
Great list, and it's why one of the greatest comedy bits of all time is Eddie Murphy talking about the ice cream truck. Ice cream!
Yes, I was just thinking about that.
Moving on, Petty Officer America says every Democrat who died of the Chi-Com virus still on the voter rolls will hold their nose and end up pulling the lever for Joe Biden in 2020.
You know it's good if straight man Aaron couldn't get through it without laughing when he knew it was coming. He knew it was coming. He still couldn't stop.
Can you pull it up again? And can you zoom in on his avatar?
It's Captain America.
Oh, he's not the guy. Isn't he the guy? Does he switch it out? He's the guy who's got the like half naked Sean Connery wearing like some. It's just so hilarious. The shadow made it look like that. So. But yeah, buy. Gotta buy. I mean, did you guys see the Babylon Bee headline yesterday? Democrat healed by hydroxychloroquine still hopes to die later so that he can prove Trump's a moron. Yes. There is proving there is no issue. And we had him on a couple weeks ago. No matter how black, how dark, there is no issue that the Babylon Bee can't stare into and create laughs out of. It's perfect.
Yep. Let's see, another list. Adam G says, the top 5 quarantine phrases you never want to hear again. Number 5, we're in this together.
Bye.
Number 4, stay home, save lives. So number 3, stop the spread. Number 2, social distancing. And number 1, you and your business are non-essential. That's a good list.
That's a grand slam, man.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an absolute grand slam. You bet.
Let's see. Paul Howard says there will be no in-store Black Friday events for national retail. Black Friday will be a strictly e-commerce event for 2020.
I will sell.
Sell.
Yeah, I will sell.
Man, have you been to Costco recently?
I'm going today, actually. It's Costco day for us.
Creepy. I went there yesterday.
Yeah.
It is creepy. There's no background music at all. It's just the sound of Costco employees, yelling at each other and just people hurriedly moving
So you're
around.
telling me
It's
that
really
I should,
weird.
when I walk in there here in a couple of hours,
Just hum really loud.
when I walk in there, I need to scream out, "Hey, where are the white women at?" Classic
Yes.
movie line.
Yeah.
Just see what happens. Hey, where are the white women at? Just see what happens. Is that what you're telling me I should do?
I just watched that movie with my wife for the first time ever, like last week.
Did she get through it all?
Oh, she's seen it multiple times before.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure my wife has ever seen Blazing Saddles, actually.
Aaron Reale says the top 5 coronavirus public figures / entities has Harry Potter characters: Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Dolores Umbridge.
Oh,
Love
that's
that.
perfect.
Obviously.
That's perfect.
The media, Rita Skeeter. That's good.
That's good too. Yeah.
Christian Blue check marks, Percy Weasley. That's the best one.
Yes. No, I don't know. No. The first one's the best one. But that one's pretty good too. The Dolores Umbridge thing is just cash money, homie. Okay.
Doctor,
she even looks like she could be like her prettier daughter. Okay?
Yeah. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge. Not quite sure about that
No,
one.
I might have something a tad more.
Yeah.
It's
like Lucius Malfoy.
Maybe Lucius Malfoy-ish for one, Mr. Fauci.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
And China, WHO must not be named.
I like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Overall, that's a pretty good
good.
list. That's well done. Yeah.
Chris Roman says, as much as I do not wish this, we
Hey,
will.
where are the white women at? Sorry, I just want to do that one more time. I'm sorry.
As much as I do not wish this, we will at some point see a riot in a U.S. city because of the overwhelming restrictions these states and governments are putting on the people's constitutional rights and liberties. Depends.
I'm going to sell. And it doesn't mean I don't think we could see like a Kent State kind of an incident where overzealous law enforcement has an isolated incident. But I think that what's happening in Michigan right now is going to get the attention of a lot of folks. And keep in mind, most of these leftists like money too. They just pretend to care about wealth redistribution and things of that nature to get power over you. But who are most of their friends? Huge Hollywood, rich movie stars, movie moguls, corporate America. My buddy Chip Roy just told you, Wendy Davis outraised him 2-1 in the first quarter. In a race Wendy Davis isn't going to win. She's not going to beat him in November in that state. No, with Trump at the top of the ballot in Texas, she's not. I mean, they love to talk about the poor. But the richer you are, the more likely you are to vote Democrat in America. And that's been true for the last several election cycles. So I think they're far more interested in using the power of government to infringe on the liberties of those they don't agree with. That's what you're seeing in Michigan, for example. And I think the fact that the people in Michigan en masse have stood up today to slap back, I think that they will get the signal that they can't go that far and let it get to that point.
I'm going to buy, but it's not, I don't think it's the liberties. It's the economy. It's like Shays Rebellion, the drip, drip, drip over time. And soon we fought for this. Are you going to pay for us? The economic downturn is going to affect different pockets of America in different ways. And in some of those ways, I think it's going to lead to unrest.
Okay. We're going to stick around and do some overtime for our Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, have a great day. Stay safe. John 3:17.